I have read years worth of cigar reviews, poured through hundreds and hundreds of cigar ratings, and I've come to this conclusion: cigar reviews need to change. Hey everyone, I'm Dave with Beastmade Reviews, of course a channel dedicated to reviewing quality at different price points. Now, if you've watched my channel, you may have seen some popular videos that have been talking about cigars. I think a lot of guys out there are really looking for more information about cigars. They've come to my channel because I've been looking for more information about cigars. I've written for cigar magazines and online publications. I have some friends that are really big aficionados and really big in the industry. And so my journey has kind of been shepherded by those friends and acquaintances and colleagues along the way. I recently just finished a video about beginner cigars. And so if you're just starting off and you want to know some beginning cigars there, definitely go check out the video up there. I think you'll really enjoy that video. There are a lot of great suggestions there. Today though, I want to kind of take an alternate route here and talk about my opinion about cigar reviews and ratings out there, because if you're just starting off into cigars, or maybe you're not, maybe you're really experienced into cigars, you've seen cigar magazines, you've seen cigar blogs and websites, YouTube channels that review cigars. I think all of them have merit. And so my opinions today aren't to disparage those people who are reviewing cigars and rating cigars. I really have realized some things about the rating systems of a lot of these people out here, and I think they're not really helpful. But before we go on, if you really like cigar content, if you really like content about quality, about everyday carry stuff, about fashion, cigars, guitars, everything in between, I think you'll really like this channel. So why don't you consider subscribing down below? And of course, this video will probably not get a whole lot of reach since it's on cigars and the algorithm does not like that. So if you like this video, you want to support this channel, and you like what I do here, I have some links down below. They're curated pieces that are cigar accessories, some deals, some really good things that I think you might really like. See if you want anything there, anything you buy there for yourself, it will help out the channel there. So just go take a look and go buy yourself something nice. I always appreciate it when you do that. Okay, cigar reviews. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. So here are all my thoughts here. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you disagree, I would love to hear them down below. Of course, be civil. If you agree, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have something that you would like to add, of course, let's add to the discussion down in the comments. All right, number one here, my first point, 100-point scales that you often see in cigar reviews are really too big. When you look at a lot of cigar reviews, one thing that you will see is a 100-point scale. You'll see a 90 rated cigar or a 95 rated cigar or what have you. And at first glance, this kind of makes sense. There is a certain amount of intuition here with that kind of association because we all grew up, especially in America, with a grading system that is a 100-point scale. If you made a 90 on a test, that's an A. If you made an 80, that's a B, and so on and so forth. But despite that, why do we need 100 points for a rating system, especially when we start off at 100 points for a cigar and then you dock one single point for an issue? Why do we need a 100-point system? When I was growing up watching movie reviews on Siskel and Ebert, they just had a simple thumbs up or a thumbs down. That was their rating system. So they only ended up with 4 variations, either 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down, or thumbs up, thumbs down. That was it. They only had those. And when we think about a 100-point scale and we think about maybe school tests, most school tests aren't even 100 questions. You'll often find school tests like 10 questions, 20 questions, 30 questions, something like that, that are reweighted for a 100-point scale. So each question, if you get it wrong, is docked off a lot more points based on how each question is weighted against a 100-point scale. But when you see a lot of these reviews, which aren't really clear on how they review them in the first place, you might see something that has maybe a serious burn issue and they dock it 1 point here, 1 point there, 1 point there for a serious burn issue that they say is really bad, but they only maybe docked it 3 points. And so when you get a 100-point scale and you dock at these little meager points for issues, you come up with a lot of really high scores for cigars that have a lot of serious issues. Number 2, a 100-point rating scale is confusing. When we talk about a 100-point scale and you have a 95 rated cigar versus a 92 rated cigar, can you even tell the difference? If you were to try both of them back to back, would you even be able to tell that one was 95 and one was 92? I don't think you could. I think it's probably more likely that these are probably going to be in the same ballpark. With a 100-point scale like you often see in magazines and online publications, I don't think it's very clear what the difference is between one and the other. The only thing you can say for certainty is one is higher points than the other one. There's not really a qualitative difference to the end user. What about an 89 and an 85? Can you tell the difference there? What about an 89 and a 93? I don't think anyone could tell the difference. My next point is a lot of reviews seem random and not really systematic. Now first, let me get this out of the way. Reviews are subjective. Every review is going to be different. Every reviewer is going to be different. I have to concede that point right away. Even when I make reviews, even with any of my opinions, I like what I like. Reviewers like what they like. And when they're going to explain something, they're going to explain it through their subjective framework. I think that's understandable. I totally get that. I'm totally fine with that. But when we're talking about a score or a rating, a lot of times reviewers just come up with numbers randomly, especially when coupled with a 100-point scale. Many reviewers don't really have a method or system to how they review something. Some do, but many don't. I've seen a lot of reviewers just give the first third just a random number, not really explaining how they came up with that number with their rating system. The second third has a different number, and then the last third has a different number, and then the final score has an average of those three numbers. And then when you couple that with a 100-point scale that is already vague, the final number, the final score, seems almost silly. We don't know how you got there, you're just pulling random numbers off the top of your head. So again, translated for the end user, that number is almost meaningless. My next point is that scores often don't truly reflect the reviews. Now, one thing, after reading hundreds and hundreds of reviews, I've come to realize that we are really spoiled for choice with cigars. We have so many good cigars and so few bad cigars out there. That, first of all, is my number one takeaway. Usually with these reviews, you'll find that they really gravitate towards a small range of numbers in the rating system anyway. So for instance, you almost never see anything below an 85, and you almost never see anything above a 98. Generally, I know there are exceptions. I know different reviewers have different ways of reviewing as well, but generally you'll always see reviews in this certain range, meaning we don't actually have a 100-point scale, even though it's masquerading as a 100-point scale. We truly have just a small number of ratings here. But if you have a cigar that's an 85, that's probably actually not a very good cigar. If you have one that's a 92, that's a pretty average cigar. And if you have one that's a 97, 98, then that's probably the most perfect cigar you will ever find. But even these really high ratings in the 90s are pretty average compared to the rest of the cigar world at large. My next point is that many of these reviews have criteria that are really unimportant for the average cigar user. If you read or watch a review, you may see a lot of criteria that reviewers talk about, and they may not even mean anything to you, like maybe burn time, or ash length, or toothiness, or appearance, or draw, or burn lines. And maybe there are people out there who care about all of those qualities. But as for me, a lot of these qualities are not really that important. The only thing I'm really looking for is how it tastes. Is it good? Those are really the most important things. But sadly, if these reviewers have criteria, which many don't, and they have systematic ways of reviewing their criteria, which many don't, then a lot of these reviews are weighted in ways in which they affect the overall score in a negative way. So for instance, burn lines. To me, this is one of the most unimportant things about a cigar, unless it just gets really, really bad. If a cigar is a little bit wavy, I don't really care about that. If it starts to canoe, that's a different thing altogether. And that maybe I can see affecting the overall score of a cigar, but I haven't found many cigars, if humidified properly, that will canoe. So if a cigar has a little bit of waviness in there, it really doesn't bother me, but these reviewers, it seems to really bother. Ash length is something that I do not care at all about. I don't care if an ash is this long or is this long. That doesn't affect the cigar to me. It doesn't affect quality. Even something as integral to the experience itself, like the draw, I still don't even care about. For me personally, I can affect the draw myself. If it's too tight, I can loosen it with a draw tool. If it's too loose, I can deal with it. For me, most of the time, a lot of these problems can just be fixed properly humidifying the cigar itself. And I know these reviewers know that, and I know they're doing their best, so I'm not taking any pot shots here. But what I am saying is that most of these points don't really matter a whole lot to many cigar users, end users. And I've heard so many friends kind of repeat and parrot the same kind of talking points that a lot of reviews have. When they suggest a cigar to me, they'll say it has a great burn time. It's a clean burn line. It has a great draw. And that thing I'm thinking is, I don't care about any of those things. How's the overall flavor? That's really what I care about. Now, on the other hand, I do think that these criteria are helpful for companies. If they want to improve or control the quality of their cigars, then they're going to find something that they can do to make sure that the cigar experience is as uniform as possible. But from my perspective, whenever I see these reviews, I kind of chuckle seeing a review take a wrong turn and give a bad review just because the line was a tiny bit wavy or the ash length wasn't quite as long as the reviewer wanted. And sadly, I think many of these reviews with these random rating systems and unnecessary criteria are really affecting how the end user experiences and talks about a cigar, but in a bad way. My next point is the goal of the end user is often different from the goal of the reviewer. Now, this is something that really could change with the review system at large, but I found that if you go to a cigar shop and you want a suggestion for a good cigar, what are you going to ask that person at the counter? You're probably not going to ask that person for a 97 to 98 rated cigar. You're probably not going to ask for a cigar with a clean burn line, with a long ash, with no toothiness, okay? You're going to ask for a good quality cigar and the most cigar you can get for the dollars that you have. Those are really the true criteria for the end user. They want to know, is a cigar good or is it bad? And how much cigar can I get with my money? They want the best tasting, best quality cigar that they can get for their dollar, and that's it. My next point is that many of these reviews can be a conflict of interest. Now, this is a point that is speculative here, so I'm just going to speculate here because I can't prove this. And given the fact that these publications have to make money and they have to rate cigars for their audience, it only seems logical for me to think that these companies, these publications, are doing pay-for-play reviews. Now, this is just a suspicion. I cannot prove this, but seeing the kind of pipeline for how this works, it would not surprise me if a cigar company wants their cigar published in a magazine with a good rating. They pay the magazine to put it in the magazine. The magazine then in turn gives a positive, good, highly rated cigar review for that cigar, and then that cigar company uses that review as advertising PR for their cigars. And this kind of also gets to my point about the 100-point scale. If you have a 100-point scale and everything is 85 to 98, a lot of cigars are going to be in that 90 to 98 range. And that is really appealing from a PR perspective for a lot of these cigar companies. Now, I hope publications and companies are not doing that because I think that's unethical, that's not helpful, that's very deceptive, especially for the end user. But seeing how there could be a conflict of interest here, I hope I'm wrong. My next point is that many reviews can slide toward positive-only style reviews. Now, I've been in the world of reviewing things on YouTube for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people slide into this type of idea where they think that because they are big in some certain type of niche or community, they think they have a responsibility to give only good reviews and say only positive things because their audience doesn't like negative things. But I don't see that. I think that if you want to help the end user, they might not appreciate all the time your suggestions or your criticisms about a product. That company might not even like it that much either sometimes. But those criticisms are what help grow communities, grow companies, make companies better, make products better for the end user. We need reviews that are going to be critical. It doesn't have to be all hate, but it cannot be all positive. If everything is all positive, then really nothing is at all. I think every reviewer needs to have integrity and consistency in their reviews, and I would always encourage reviewers to be more balanced if they can. And so to wrap everything up, how can reviews really get better, and will they get better? Well, I'm no prophet, and I have just a small voice in the community at large here, but I hope that at least a few people out there listen to this, heed the warnings and advice, and maybe change their course, alter their perspective, maybe a little bit here and there. The first thing we can do as reviewers is have a smaller scale or point system in order to give our final rating. I personally think anything over 10 points is way too many points. Anything more than that really gets unwieldy and is really too confusing for the end user to understand the difference between your rating system. I think next is to really track and gauge how you rate things. Explain how you rate things to your audience so they know know what you're doing and how you're rating something. If you're taking something and knocking certain points off, do that. Next, rethink how your rating system resonates with your audience. One person I really appreciate on YouTube and his rating system is Cigar Hound. His scale is really great because it's not a number scale. It's really an emotional scale of sorts. His scale is unparalleled, memorable, satisfying, pleasant, inadequate, or dog rocket. And I've watched enough of his reviews to see that he's reviewed a lot of cigars that hit any of those points. I've seen anything from unparalleled all the way to dog rockets. What I love about that in particular is that you immediately know what he's talking about. If something is pleasant, you understand why it's pleasant, and you understand that that cigar is a good experience, it's pleasant, but it's not unparalleled. Now, his taste is different than mine, so I might not really resonate necessarily with his taste in cigars, but I know exactly how he's describing his cigars. No one knows the difference between an 85 and an 89 rated cigar, but everyone knows the difference between a satisfying and a dog rocket. Next, weigh your rating system based more on flavor and less on some of the more unimportant things. If a cigar doesn't have a quite perfect burn line, that doesn't necessarily need as many points as flavor does. Flavor needs to be paramount and needs to have the highest points of your scale. And if you can, communicate with your audience how you're rating something. What is your system of reviews? How are you coming up with this? Next is just to communicate ultimately if it's good, if it's bad, or if it's just okay. I think it's okay to have just those three. If we have a review system where it's good, bad, or okay, we understand what that means as cigar lovers. It doesn't have to be an elaborate scale. Sometimes the simpler scales, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes those mean a lot more to the end user because we understand those a lot better. My last point is just to disclose. Now, I know a lot of people on YouTube do a great job at disclosing if they get something for free. I think this is really important, but it's very vitally important if you're reviewing something to disclose if you got it for free or if there's any kind of sponsorship or money involved. We have to know that ahead of time. That by itself gets honesty right at the forefront of your viewers, and we understand where you're coming from. I think most people really understand the economics of reviewing. They understand that we get sponsors. They understand that we get products for review on our channels, but they just want to know that upfront. And with that, I think that's all my points here. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that these rating systems are bad, and do you think they can improve? I would love to hear your thoughts. And again, of course, if you like this video, definitely check out the links down below. Go buy you something nice. I think you really like those. Definitely just go give them a look. And if you want to see a really good video on things that no one told me about cigars, you can go and watch it up here. And if you want to go watch a video on great cigar accessories, you can go and watch it up here. I'll see you next time. I'm Dave with Beastmade Reviews. Bye.